So the release of Top Gun Maverick, the sequel to the classic released in 1986 Top Gun, has been slid once again. The original release date was June of 2020. Of course, that didn't happen because of the pandemic, so it was slid to basically the holidays of last year. And then because things weren't changing much, it was slid by Paramount, the studio that is releasing the movie, once again to 4th of July, this coming 4th of July. And now Paramount just announced that they're sliding it again to November 19th. So I know from what I've seen that Tom Cruise is very insistent that everything be perfect. This is very much a labor of love for him. He's put a lot into it, to put it mildly. And he said at Comic-Con, he characterized Top Gun Maverick as a love letter to aviation. And from what I'm seeing with the trailers and other things I'm hearing, I think that's by and large true. So I have some experience dealing with Hollywood. I worked in LA for a couple of years on a military website. And the first time I dealt with Paramount Studios, I was actually a lieutenant working at the Naval Safety Center. I was the editor of the aviation safety magazine called Approach. And in that capacity, I made this video that I produced myself using an old school VHS to VHS editing machine. And I used some rock and roll songs. I didn't have the copyright for them. This was before the internet and when somebody would have flagged me for that. But this was mishap footage that I put to songs like Welcome to the Jungle and Cold Sweat by the Sugar Cubes and some others. So this was a very popular video, and we premiered it at the Tailhook convention, which was in Las Vegas back in those days in 1989. So there was a rep from Paramount who was there because at the time they were shooting Hunt for Red October and Flight of the Intruder, a novel written by my good friend Stephen Kuntz, who was very influential and a mentor of mine when I was starting to write Punk's War. So I get a call from Paramount, a rep, who said, "Hey, I saw the mishap footage video. Can I get a copy? Because we're doing Hunt for Red October, and in Hunt for Red October, this F-14 crashes, and we want to use some of that footage." And so my first response was, I don't think I'm authorized to release this footage. So this rep called the commander, public affairs officer in LA, who worked at a command called Nav Info West. So every branch of the military and the Pentagon have offices that have the mission to deal with Hollywood. And Nav Info West was doing the script reviews and other things. And I will say it's not easy necessarily to have the military, in this case the U.S. Navy, support your project. They get script approval, they get to decide whether or not you're going to use real hardware, have access to military personnel, active duty personnel. And in fact, Top Gun, the original script, had to be modified a little bit. So I get a call from Nav Info West, and they're like, please give Paramount this footage. The script for Hunt for Red October and Flight of the Intruder is approved, so go for it. And so I gave them the footage, and I assumed they would use an F-14 mishap, but in fact, if you look at this scene, and the scene is the one where the Alec Baldwin character has just come aboard the aircraft carrier, and Fred Thompson plays the admiral, and behind him on the plat, the ship's TV, you can see an F-14 coming in, and you hear some power calls, and then an airplane hits the ramp and tumbles. So if you look closely, that airplane is not, in fact, a Tomcat. And this is the part where Fred Thompson, the admiral, says, "This business will get out of control. It will get out of control, and we'll be lucky to live through it." So that's actually a Korean War vintage F9 that tumbles there. And the backstory is that pilot actually got out of that wreckage, as dramatic as it is, with only burned wrists where his flight suit sleeves didn't cover. So that was my first lesson in accuracy and getting a script approved and getting approval. So just so you understand, Top Gun Maverick has the approval of the U.S. Navy. They filmed aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt. They're using real Super Hornets. The flying scenes were flown by real Top Gun crews and also Strike U crews, not just guys at Top Gun, but also pilots from Strike U. Remember, as I said in previous episodes, Top Gun moved from Miramar to Fallon, Nevada, the high Sierras. And you can see in the footage that this is a completely different landscape than in Top Gun, the original Top Gun. So let's look at some of the footage here and some of the elements and see if we can't, figure out what Top Gun Maverick is all about and compare and contrast it with the first one. So as I said, I worked in Hollywood. I was the editor-in-chief of a military website. And when I was out there, I actually did a meeting with Jerry Bruckheimer. So Jerry is one of the co-producers of the original one. And this is in 2015. So I got to talk about where we are, or where we were, with the development of Top Gun Maverick. Because you heard rumors when I lived down in Southern Maryland that Tom Cruise actually visited the CEO of the test pilot school. And so you're like, oh, they're doing something about test pilots. And so this is way back in like 2011, 2012 timeframe. So I see Jerry, I'm like, so what's going on? And he says, well, it's happening. That's all he would say. It's happening. So this is 2015. So fast forward to the Tailhook Convention in 2019, and the director, Joseph Kosinski, came out and he actually debuted the trailer. And they got us all in the auditorium there at the Nugget in Reno. They made us put our phones at the front of the room, so it was really mysterious. And they said, you cannot talk about this. And they showed us the trailer, the first one that came out. And if you haven't seen that, go up YouTube and check it out. It's an amazing trailer. So imagine seeing that not just on your laptop, but on a big screen. So we got chills. Now, while we were there, we also talked to many of the crews who flew the scenes and who flew the actors, including Tom Cruise. So at one point during the Q&A, one of the aviators who was not part of the filming asked Kosinski, did Tom Cruise get airsick? And Kosinski said, no, he absolutely did not. And the guy sitting next to me is the pilot who flew Tom Cruise. And he actually snickered and kind of shook his head. And so I'm interpreting that to mean that maybe, in fact, Tom Cruise did get airsick, but whatever. So they used Navy crews as advisors, and they filmed aboard the carrier scenes aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt off the West Coast, in the West Coast, Southern California operating areas. And as you can see from this photo here, that's quite an involved evolution. And I remember hearing stories from the original Top Gun filmed aboard Ranger and Enterprise, both aircraft carriers decommissioned now, but how they had to get the sun right, and Tony Scott was really insistent and so forth and so on. And so obviously you have to have some understanding of how we're going to do this and some patience. So the technology is much better now, obviously. And so you can see here that they have these IMAX cameras that they bolted onto the glare shield to look back at the rear cockpit. And this is an F-18F, two-seat Super Hornet. And so the other thing you need to understand is you can't just bolt cameras on a Navy airplane. So this had to have Naval Air Systems Command engineer approval. That's a very involved process to get them to approve a rig like this. And they had these cool chase jets that you can see here, and you see this Super Hornet zorts away there. That's sped up, but you can't go that fast. But very impressive cinematography. And so at Tailhook, the director laid claim to these are the most amazing flying scenes ever filmed. And I don't have any reason to believe that's not true, because you can see here in this scene as the Super Hornet is raging across one of the ranges at Fallon, I'm guessing, probably Bravo 20, low level, just moving transonic, so you get that shock wave that's knocking the sand up. And then he does this really cool impulse pull, kind of like what the Blue Angels do at the beginning of their show, and pulls into the vertical. So they're flying Super Hornets. You can tell by the square intakes there. Here's a nice aileron roll away from the camera. And incredible footage. This is obviously sped up. Low level, very exciting, beautiful. These airplanes are vaping there. You can see the condensation. Here we're going low level, nice pull over the top. So it is really amazing footage. Gorgeous. Gave me chills the first time I saw it there at that premiere of the trailer at Tailhook. Now, as I said, this is a passion project for Tom Cruise, and he has taken a real strain on getting it right. A love letter to aviation, as he said. Obviously, his career was forged by playing Maverick. It took him to the next level in terms of his visibility as an actor. So he wants to give back in myriad ways, including trying to get this right insofar as a Hollywood movie, an entertainment vehicle, can get it right. So he owns a P-51, which is badass. That's a really cool World War II fighter. He owns one, and here's a picture of him taking one of his co-stars, Jennifer Connelly, for a ride. And he put his actors through this syllabus. He came up with this hybrid syllabus. It started with flying in the P-51 with him, feeling the G, going inverted, and then he put them in these L-39s, which is a jet used by European countries for training that can go fast and pull Gs, and it's an ejection seat, so got them used to that. And so they got used to pulling Gs and getting airsick. And he wanted to get them adapted so when they got in the back seat of the Super Hornet that they'd kind of know what they were getting into. But in spite of that, as you can see from this footage here, if you've never flown a tactical airplane in tactical conditions, inverted 6.5 plus 7, 8 G on the airplane for extended periods of time, it's going to get your attention. And you can see here that even Tom Cruise kind of had his ass kicked. And here's this one segment here. You can see that he's kind of having trouble keeping his eyes open, which is, for fighter guys, it's kind of bad to close your eyes while you're fighting a bogey, because you're going to lose sight. And you can see here after that, he's got his it's a good workout, right? As we all know, anybody who's done that. So the other thing is in carrier ops, they want to give you the illusion that he's in the front seat. So here he does this cat shot. You can see he's kind of got his hand up, as I've described before with the carrier ops episode, the secrets of the Tomcat carrier ops episode. Tomcat pilots had their hands on the stick during a cat shot. Super Hornet pilots do not. So they salute the shooter and then put their hand up here on a handle. But you can see here he's got his hand kind of low, so he's trying to simulate in the back seat the idea of putting your hand up there, but actually his hand is a little bit low. Okay, it looks like Top Gun Maverick has a lot of nods to the original Top Gun. Specifically in the trailer, you can see Maverick is still riding on the taxiway with his motorcycle. We're still briefing in hangar bays, although this one is aboard the ship instead of at the field there, as I said in the 21 Cringeworthy Errors episode. Not practical in terms of classified information. Looks like they're briefing some sort of target imagery there on the big blow-up picture. And they also have, for some reason, members of the ship's crew in attendance. Maverick is still manning up by himself in relatively quiet, although flight ops are going on. And he's still giving a thumbs up before he salutes the cat officer for some reason. We're dumping fuel again, going into the merge. The dump mast on the Super Hornet is at the top of the vertical stabs. And we have some really visually intriguing aerobatics, aerial moves, but these things are tactically impractical, if not violations of the training rules of engagement. Somebody loses a motor, although probably doesn't go into a flat spin because the Super Hornet doesn't flat spin like the Tomcat used to. Beach football has replaced beach volleyball. The I-bar has replaced the Miramar O Club. And not sure what song has replaced You've Lost That Loving Feeling. And Rooster must have his dad's piano playing jeans because he's taken up the piano. Let's try to figure out the plot, sort of roughly, based on the trailers and the other behind-the-scenes images that we've seen here. So first off, Maverick has this killer man cave with a P-51, a handful of motorcycles, and all kinds of other stuff. So he is a captain in 06. He must have some other sideline to make some money because you can't have these kinds of hobbies on captain's pay. I'm sorry, you just can't. His significant other, let's assume it's his wife, is Peggy Benjamin, the admiral's daughter, who's referenced in the first movie as one of the flybys that he did, an unauthorized flyby. So I'm thinking the trailer chronology is 180 out, meaning it ends with him flying this SR-72. But based on what I know about the site surveys and different places that Tom Cruise and the producers went, I'm thinking it starts with him being a test pilot. So he visited Patuxent River Naval Air Station about 2011, 2012 timeframe and asked questions of the CEO of the test pilot school, who I know, about what is it like to be a test pilot. So I'm thinking he's here at test pilot. He's a test pilot, and he does this flyby. He blows the roof off of the guard shack, and he gets called on the carpet by Ed Harris, who plays a two-star. Not sure exactly what his job is. And Ed Harris lays out sort of his career path, how many years he's been in, how many MiGs he's killed, et cetera, and says, yet you're just a captain. And he asks him, why is that? And Tom Cruise says, one of life's mysteries. Good line. So this franchise is known for its one-liners, as we know. I feel the need for speed. Do some of that pilot shit. You can be my wingman anytime. These kinds of one-liners that have become part of pop culture. So I'm thinking he leaves test pilot community and heads to Top Gun again. We can see from some of the footage and images that were taken on set, here's one of the cast talking to Tom Cruise, and they're wearing their flight suits. It looks like they got the patch assortment right. So this would be correct if you were talking about a Top Gun class, strike fighter weapons, tactics instructors, Swifty. So now when you go through Top Gun, it's not just 6 weeks long, it's 10 weeks long. You actually get an official warfare specialty subcode, and it becomes actually something that informs your career path after that. And they're also wearing the Top Gun patch. Talked about the patch wearers, that circular patch on your sleeve. So you'll remember in the first movie there was all these patch assortments and grab bag of stuff that kind of made it ridiculous. And now it looks like they got that right in this one, which is great. And one of the plot lines is the tension between Rooster, Goose's son, and Maverick. And Rooster says, my dad believed in you. I'm not going to make the same mistake. And so they have obviously a little scuffle here in the ready room. The hangman character played by actor Glenn Powell, has some tension with Rooster, kind of like Maverick and Iceman from the first movie. Hangman is allegedly the son of Iceman, or maybe Maverick. So it's kind of like a Darth Vader, who's his father thing. And then some of the other folks we have Fanboy, Payback, and just plain Bob. So what you notice with the helmets is they're wearing HGU 55s, which are not the most cutting edge that they wear these days. So if you look at a picture of a modern helmet, it has this big housing. It's kind of ugly, to be honest, but it's good for night vision goggles and the different glass cockpits that they have now. And for the F-35, the helmet and the visor are actually the HUD. Now your visor is your HUD. So that's a big unwieldy piece of gear. And I guess the director thought that's not a good look. So they also have clear visors. So they're not wearing dark visors, which they would be, but you can't see a person's expression if he has a dark visor on or he or she has a dark visor on. So they're wearing clear visors so you can see their eyes and everything like that. And also, for some reason, they have their call signs as if it's football tryouts, like you had your last name taped to the front of your helmet. They have their call signs on the front of their helmet. That's not where your call sign would be. It would be in small letters on the back of your helmet in the real world. So they leave the training environment at some point and things get real world. And by this footage, somebody gets shot at by, I'm guessing it's IR Sam, and they shoot flares, and eventually this person must get shot down because there's a memorial service. Missing man information, Jennifer Connelly, Peggy Benjamin is there. So did she know the person, or is she just there because she's Maverick's wife? Maverick does this pound the wings in, which I've never seen before at a aviation memorial service, and I've been to a number of them. That's more of a SEAL thing, but it's a good look, dramatic. And so that's kind of what we know, except the X factor. And the X factor is the involvement of the F-14, as we've teased out before. So what role does the Tomcat play? Well, we have seen some shots that were taken like with long-range cameras on the set up in the Lake Tahoe area, which is near Fallon. And so here we see this picture of an F-14, and it's got some weird insignia on it. Not sure what country that's supposed to be. Looks like some, Eastern European country. And there are photos of, here's Tom Cruise getting in the front seat. And then the Miles Teller character is getting in the rear cockpit. So the Rooster character gets in the back seat. So is there a plot line where Maverick and Rooster man up a Tomcat? Like Rooster is like, be my Rio like your dad kind of a thing? That seems kind of intriguing. Obviously sort of hokey, but, kind of cool. And then there's another set image that was taken that shows Tom Cruise running away through the snow after apparently being shot down. So it's kind of a behind enemy lines kind of a thing, right? So that's all we know. We'll have to wait till hopefully no later than November 18th. But it's looking like it's going to be a good one. I know I'm looking forward to it. As we get closer, if I find out any more, we'll be talking about it here on the channel. Obviously, when I see it for the first time, I'll definitely be talking about it here at the channel. So, Top Gun Maverick. Looks like it's going to be a good one. And no surprise. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you Again, to all the new subscribers, we have hit 10,000 subscribers. That's a big deal in terms of visibility of the channel. The other thing that matters a lot is likes. So if this is the first episode you've watched, please ring the bell. If you're a returning subscriber, hit those likes. Comments are awesome. I love the comments. Getting a community going here. As you've seen, I try to answer each and every one. Very much appreciate the effort there. And share the videos on the other social channels that you're part of. So again, thanks for the support, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.